everyone, I am Sig Trent, your friendly game designer, and today we're going to be making a character in Everyday Heroes using my hero sheets, which you can get on sigtrent.com or on DriveThruRPG. And we will also be using the Sidekick application from Evil Genius Games in order to look up character information. So let's talk a little bit about these two tools. So my hero sheets are an upgraded version of the Evil Genius Games character sheets for Everyday Heroes. It's got a number of features which I will be highlighting today. They come in 2-page versions, 4-page versions, and single-page versions. You get a whole package when you buy the set, and they help you make a character a little bit faster than you otherwise could because they have some auto calculation features that you'll see in action today. They're also optimized for play with fields and statistics kind of right where you need them and near things that will be useful to you, and also the order of the fields is put together to help you build characters. So we're going to demonstrate all of that. Sidekick is a visual reader. It's an online tool for reading Everyday Heroes products from Evil Genius Games. Eventually they should have products from Sig Trent Games and other things on there, but right now it's just the Evil Genius stuff, and we are going to be looking at the free rules version, which, as it sounds like, you don't have to pay for. It's very similar to the Quick Start Guide, which you can get on my website and on the Evil Genius Games website, and on DriveThru, which is a free version of the Everyday Heroes rules. This character will be built with options that are available both in the Quick Start Guide and in the free rules. The free rules on Sidekick actually has a little bit more information because you don't have quite as many limitations for doing print on demand or that sort of thing. We wanted to keep that version as short as we could make it, while the online reader version has room for more character options and things like that. Okay, well, let's get started with the process of making a character. And usually you want to start with some kind of a character concept. We're going to be making a character who grew up in a war zone, who now works as private security for corporate offices and things like that. But they're really investigating corporate malfeasance or government conspiracies or things like that in the guise of being a private security officer, because that gives them access to things that other people might not notice. So sometimes they'll work as a bodyguard, sometimes as sort of a corporate spy, whatever that happens to be. But they have an ulterior, but noble ulterior motive. Okay, so that's the character concept we're going with. We are going to start with the character name up at the top of the character sheet. And let's see, what's a good name? We'll go for Darren, and we are going to use my father's middle name, McCloud, as last name. So I like it a lot. Also has a cool Highlander connection. So Darren McCloud is our private security investigator guy. So the first thing that we are going to do when making a character in Everyday Heroes is origin. Origin's a little bit like race, but in this case, there's only one origin in the modern day, and that is to be a human being. So I'm going to go over here to Sidekick, scroll down to the table of contents and select Origin. And that's going to tell us how to do origins. Now, the main thing that Origin is going to give you for every character is the way you determine your strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. These are ability scores, just like in 5e Dungeons & Dragons. It's the same ability scores, uses the same kind of mechanics, so it should be familiar to you if you are familiar with D&D, as most people are. But if you're not, these things are pretty obvious what they do. These scores will be numbers generally between 8 and 20, although technically they can go down to 1. And you could go above 20, but not usually on human characters. So each origin that you might find in the game, and there are other origins if you do the science fiction or fantasy versions of Everyday Heroes, but for this version, only humans, they will start with either an array of ability scores, which are indicated here, 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8. Other origins would have different array, or a point-buy system where you can spend points to get your ability scores, or you can roll them using dice on 46, keep the highest 3 for each score. Again, very similar to D&D. However, we are going to use the array here, and I happen to know I am going to build a wise hero, which is a wisdom-based character. So I'm going to put my highest score over there in wisdom. You don't have to do that, but it's usually a good idea. I want my second best score to be in dexterity, so I'm going to put 14 there. And then I want to be tough, constitution. Next, I think I want intelligence and charisma. We don't need to be too charming. Just kind of really average, blend into the crowd, which is good for this kind of a character. You want to keep a low profile in this kind of private security. And we're just going to have a strength of 8. This is a thinking character more than a brute character. So that's where we're going to start with. Those are going to get modified a little bit as we go. And as you can see, this character sheet is automatically, as I put in these numbers, calculating modifiers for these ability scores over here. In this system, you get a bonus to your modifier each 2 points. So even numbers take you up a notch. And then it's going to calculate saving throws and some skill bonuses over here in the next section. So we can't get the complete value for all these things yet until all the information we need to calculate them is filled in, but it's going to get started on that process. The main thing missing right now are proficiency bonuses. We'll get to that in a little bit, but the sheet is going to take care of it for us. All right, so that's all we need to do for the human origin. It's very simple. Other origins may have different options, but we're not too worried about those. So we are going to look at the next line of our character sheet. Oh, that's origin. I should fill it in. Human. There we go. Next line is background. So we're going to scroll down and look at the backgrounds. I've got activist, bookworm, gamer, juvenile delinquent, military tradition, person of mystery, ordinary, religious tradition, rural family, social butterfly, survivor, and wealthy family. There's more 20 to 30 of these in the core rule book in all of Everyday Heroes, including all the expansions. There are probably 100 or more backgrounds. They could be almost anything. It's just whatever element of your past informs who you are in the present. I'm going to go with survivor for this character. The idea is he grew up in a war zone. Maybe he was orphaned, had some bad experiences, and it's left him a little bit cynical about big corporations and big governments and the power they have over other people. So with everything in Everyday Heroes, we have to have a role-playing element as well as mechanical elements. So ability score increase is something that I'm going to get from my background, and it's going to be Constitution or Wisdom. Because I'm making a wise hero, Wisdom's going to be a little bit better for me. So that's going to increase my score to 16. And as I tab out of that field, you can see it's going to increase the mod to +3. So all that gets taken care of for us. And that's nice because it's one of the tedious parts of making a character. Next up is skill proficiency. I'm going to get either intimidation. Oh, I'm on the wrong line now. Back up here. Skill proficiencies. I'm either going to get endurance or insight. I'm going to pick insight, which is useful for to tell people are lying to you. That's going to give me a bonus, but I don't have my proficiency bonus yet, so it's not going to calculate in. But it will. Then we've got some iconic equipment. This is mostly role-playing stuff. I got a memento from my tragic past that gives you hope. I'm going to say it is a photo of my pre-war family. I think this guy might have been orphaned, or at least he lost some of his family in the war. Now we put the equipment on the front page of the character sheet because it's something that you're going to want to reference a lot during play, so we thought it would go really well on page 1. Bulk is how big a thing is. If it's like a gun, it's bulk 1. If it's smaller than a pistol, then it's probably 0, and you don't really have to worry about it too much. If it's like a rifle, it's 2. The equipment lists tell you what bulk things are, but I know them pretty well by heart, so we'll just do that. True Survivor is a talent. So this is a special talent we get. You only need 2 successful death saving throws to stabilize rather than 3. So that's nice. We are going to copy that, and we're going to paste it on page 2. So in hero sheets, unlike normal character sheets for Everyday Heroes, they are customized by each archetype. And this is going to be a wise hero, so we chose the wise hero character sheet. And it's already got a couple talents here from the wise hero archetype. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's a nice feature, saves you a little bit of time in putting your character sheet together. But we don't know what kind of background you're going to choose, so we've got a big text field for talents and feats on both sides of the sheet, so we can just paste that in, and we are good to go. Go back to page 1. So we're all done with our background, and let's type that in. Survivor. Now, really, I should probably type these in before I do all the stats and everything, but that's all right. It doesn't really matter. It's just a good reminder. So next up is profession, and this is the job that your character does. It's how they make money. It's what they do when they're not adventuring. Some jobs, of course, might lead into adventure if you're a firefighter or a policeman or something like that. But yeah, it could also be a store clerk or a janitor or something like that. Not normally an adventurous job. So profession, generally speaking, isn't always how you lean into your adventuring life. That'll come with class. But let's pick a profession for this character. As I said, he's going to be private security. The choices we have in the free one are athletics, creative, crime, espionage, finance, journalism, intelligence. That would be like an intelligence service. Medicine, military, politics, private security, or unemployed. Now, this guy does sort of investigate organizations and the government and stuff, so you might think he's intelligence, but that's a little bit more like he's actually working for the government. In this case, he's doing it for his own private reasons and his own sense of right and wrong. So we are going to go with private security in this case. And let's click through on that. And it'll take a moment. That's my hot water being ready for tea. I'm a big tea drinker, so. All right, private security. You ensure that people, places, and things under your protection come to no harm while you remain on guard. It's really exciting, but the job gives you plenty of time to reflect. Now, the professions in the core Everyday Heroes are very broad, like private security could be a bodyguard, a bouncer, a mall cop, a night guard, security guard, anything else you can imagine that's kind of like that. However, in the expansions, usually it's much more specific. In this case, it doesn't matter. He works for a contract agency. He works whatever private security jobs that a corporation needs, usually one that's short-term, kind of hire, do the job, and get out again. So that way he can work for a lot of different groups and organizations, which makes for good storytelling. It's kind of nice for the game master. You can say, oh, okay, right now you're working over at this company and can tie into the plot. So that kind of works well. Of course, you don't have to do that when making your character, but it's something that I like to do when making characters. All right, so what are the mechanics that we get from our profession? They're a little bit beefier than what you get from your background. So first of all, your ability score increase, you're going to have wisdom, and 2 other ability scores of your choice go up by 1 to a maximum of 20. And they have to be others, so they can't all be the same thing. It's got to be wisdom and 2 different things. So let's go back over to our character sheet. We're going to pump our wisdom up by 1. Now, 17, odd numbers don't really give you any great benefit except getting you closer to an even number, which would get me a higher modifier. So that doesn't do a whole lot, but it's nice to have in the future. That'll be good. There are other ways to increase your ability scores later on. But I get 2 more picks. Like I said, even numbers are good, so we're going to take Constitution up to 14. That's going to give me some more hit points later, improve my endurance score, that kind of thing. And I'm kind of invested in dexterity. This character probably doesn't need it all that much. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and raise my strength just to kind of work on that weakness, and then maybe later on I will bump that up some more and get rid of that penalty. All right, so next up we have skill proficiencies, intimidation, perception, and security. And so we just get these straight out, so we're going to click these boxes for intimidation, and then perception, which is here, another wisdom skill, which is great, and security, which is down here. No, not quite down there, up there. Lots of S skills. So you just, anywhere there's a proficiency on your character sheet, there's going to be a little hexagon here that you can click to fill in, or is that an octagon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hexagon. And that, there's the legend up at the top of skills indicates that's a proficiency. If you have 2 of them, then you can get expertise. That's like double proficiency, and we'll see that come into play a little bit later. All right, next up are equipment proficiencies. Now, these are down here, kind of near the armor and weapons, which makes sense because it drives what equipment you can use proficiently. In Everyday Heroes, you can use any equipment you like. It's just a question of whether you're good at it. Basic tends to be fisticuffs, simple shotgun, like a pump action, not even a pump action, but like one of those breech loading shotguns, revolvers, which our character will probably use, stuff like that. So kind of simple firearms, a club, whatever happens to be on hand. The kind of thing normal people might have in their house or have been trained to use a little bit during their lifetime. Now, if you don't have any equipment proficiencies, you can still use any gun you like, just not going to be very good at it. So that's how that works. All right. So, of course, security guard probably needs to know how to use a stun gun, that kind of stuff. That's all under basic proficiencies. Next up, iconic equipment. Again, this, like the other one, is basically cosmetic items, but we're going to write some things down. We've got a flashlight. And we're going to say that's a mini flashlight, so it's bulk 0, but, you know, a powerful one. They have little tactical flashlights now. We've got an official-looking badge, so we'll just say a badge that marks me as an official, so I can get into places and go, ha, ha, ha. And then some orthopedic shoe insoles, so we'll just put shoe insoles. That's really not important to write down on your character sheet, but it reminds you that you're a character who's on their feet most of the day. So maybe you can talk about your dogs barking or that sort of thing during a role-playing moment. All right, the next thing we have is wealth. That exclusively comes from your profession. Once again, I forgot to actually write it down, so let's type it in. Private security, and your wealth level is 2. Wealth determines the kinds of things your character can buy. Wealth level 2 is kind of like lower, middle income, or upper low income. So you have some money, you probably have a car, you have an apartment, that kind of thing, but you're not exactly rich. You don't have a lot of savings, don't have a big house, anything like that. So you're kind of scraping by, but you're doing okay. Languages, every character is going to get 2 languages. This character will speak English, because I'm imagining they are an American. And then you can speak 1 more language. We're going to go with Arabic, for whatever reason. Archetype is going to be Wise Hero. Like I said, this is something I decided ahead of time. Let's go look at the options real quick, for those of you who may not be familiar with Everyday Heroes. We're going into Sidekick, trying to get over... Oh, okay, it's just being a little slow. Get back to the main menu here. You can choose from the 6 archetypes: Strong Hero, Agile Hero, Tough Hero, Wise Hero, Smart Hero, and Charming Hero. The reason I want to do a Wise Hero is I want to be a sleuth. So in this free version of the rules, there are 2 classes for each archetype. In the full version of the Everyday Heroes core rulebook, you're going to find either 3 or 4 for each archetype. And in the Quick Start Guide, there's only 1 for each archetype. So like I said, it's just a little bit more limited. So we are going to go to, even though we've chosen our class, we're going to go over to archetype and take a look at what it offers you. Now, archetype and class are both dependent on your character level. We're going to be starting at level 1. So I'm going to fill that into the character sheet now. And that's actually going to give us our proficiency bonus down here. And the proficiency bonus will then update the skills that we have tagged with proficiency. So now the sheet has everything it needs in order to calculate all the bonuses and finish off those elements of your character sheet. So kind of nice to just throw in the level. You can even do that when you're first starting the character if you want to see how the numbers are playing out. Okay, so our Wise Hero, the first thing they get is hit dice. You get 1d10 per hero level. This down here is your maximum hit dice, so we're going to put that in first. And then your current hit dice, because you can spend hit dice to get hit points back if you've been injured or wounded. So it's important to keep track of how many you have currently and how many you get when you rest up and have your maximum number. Same goes for hit points. Here's starting hit points, that means at first level, are going to be 10 plus your Constitution modifier. So the 10 comes from the hit dice, it's a d10, so you start with a maximum of 10. And then we're going to get 2 more for a total of 12 for both our maximum and our current hit points. As you go up in levels, it says here, hit points at higher levels are going to be either you can roll a d10 or you can take the up average of 6 plus your Constitution modifier for each level thereafter. That's pretty easy to make a character at any level you want to. We don't need to worry about temporary hit points. That's something that happens during play. Next up is defense. And so we have the know your enemy defense, which means we're all about kind of anticipating attacks and not getting hit by virtue of our wisdom to stay out of harm's way. So that's going to be 10 plus either our wisdom modifier or dexterity modifier. We get to choose. Not every Wise Hero is always fully invested in wisdom. You could be invested in dexterity. It works pretty well as well. Just depends on what you want to do with your character. But we're going with wisdom. It's a little bit higher, so that's going to be 13 plus the Wise Hero defense bonus. Each archetype has a defense bonus track. Wise Heroes are one of the most defensive classes or archetypes, so it's going to be 2 for a total of 15 in our defense. So put that in there. Next up, we have talents that come with our archetype, and talents are basically special things that your character can do. They can come from backgrounds, professions, classes, archetypes, your origin, feats, all kinds of things can give you talents. And now, once again, we already did one talent that we got from our background, and I see that I forgot to grab a talent for profession, so we're going to come back and do that in just a moment. It's easy to do. But we're going to pick up these talents here. However, we've already filled those in because we chose the Wise Hero sheet, and the Wise Hero sheet has the Wise Hero talents already filled out up to level 2, since most of the archetypes only have talents up to level 2. They do get more things at later levels, but they are usually not new talents. All right, so those things are already here, which is great. Now there's proficiency bonus. The character sheet is calculating that for us already. We got our defense bonus. The other thing that we have here from archetype is focus, and that is one of our talents, gives us these focus points. Focus are used to do special awesome things that wise heroes can do because they concentrate and really make sure that they do something, I don't know, with a lot of focus. It's a pretty general idea. One of the things you can do that you start out with is concentration. If you fail a wisdom ability check, you can spend 1 focus to reroll the check. So it's kind of like, no, wait, I really need to concentrate on this. So you do that and you get another shot at it. So we're going to start with 2 focus for maximum and then 2 focus for current. The current versus maximum isn't something you're going to see in the rules. That's just for record tracking while you're playing, right? Okay, so let's pop back there real quick and go grab our profession. The nice thing about Sidekick here is it is very quick to go reference stuff. So we're going to jump back over to private security real quick. It will take a moment to load, but not too bad. And then we are going to grab I'm calling the police, which basically means when you call the police, they are more likely to respond to you than they would for normal people. Because you're a security guard and you have credentials, and generally the police and the security guards are going to have a little bit of a relationship. They might look down on you a little bit, but, you know, they figure you're somebody in a similar profession. I don't know that that's always true, but certainly something that security guards deal with police a lot, since they have limited actual powers. Okay, so that is our archetype all done. We're going to move on to class, which is kind of the most substantial part of any character, and we are going to be a sleuth. By the way, in here we've got Strong Heroes, Brawler, Heavy Gunner, Scoundrel, Sharpshooter, Bodyguard, Commando, Hacker, Scientist, Master, which is like a martial artist, is another wise hero, the Sleuth, the Icon, the Leader, our Charming Heroes. So lots of options here. You can make quite a variety of characters just with these free rules. Let's jump into Sleuth. So sleuths are like private investigators or insurance investigators or anybody who's going to look deeply into something. It's a skill-based character class. Let's see what Cat Whitlock is, the iconic hero for Everyday Heroes for the Sleuth. The truth is strong medicine. It can make you whole, but it leaves a very bitter taste in your mouth. Kind of that noir private detective talk. All right. So what do we get? Number of proficiencies out of class. We're going to get 2 saving throw proficiencies, intelligence and wisdom. And so we've got these little hexagons here. So we're going to mark that intelligence. And you'll notice our saving throws go up because we are now proficient in them. Skills, we get to choose 3 from arts and crafts, computers, deception, insight, investigation, perception, security, stealth, streetwise, and vehicles. I want to have computers. Oh, I clicked the wrong one. There we go. We're not an expert. We don't have expertise in computers, just proficiency. I think I would like, let's see, we already have perception and security. Investigation sounds good for this character. He is investigating malfeasance after all. And then maybe stealth, not stealth, but stealth, because we want to sneak around, which is where that N came from, and be able to investigate without getting caught. Now we've got basic equipment proficiency. Again, we already have that. Most proficiencies, if you get it a second time, then you get to pick a different option instead of your choice. So if we got perception guaranteed to us and we already had it, we could just pick any other skill to take a proficiency in. Kind of similar for equipment, but basic is the one that doesn't do that because so many things grant you basic proficiency. You don't get anything special if you get it twice. You just get it twice. Investigation expertise, we get to choose one of these skills, insight, investigation, or perception. And we get expertise, which is basically double proficiency. And I think I'm going to take perception. It is super useful to have a lot of perception. So that goes up to +7. So that's going to be great. Now we've got equipment recommendations here. These are pretty good. They are not things that your character are granted. They're just things that you might want to consider using. You're going to have to be able to afford them with your wealth level. And since this is part of class, it doesn't necessarily know what wealth level you're going to be. But the detective pack is not particularly expensive in my recollection, so we're just going to write that down for now. And then the equipment section will tell you what is in the detective pack. It's going to be a bunch of different things. I'm just going to ballpark it and say it has a bulk of about 3. I know there's at least a heavy revolver in there and some handcuffs, stuff like that you might use if you're a detective. Weapons, we've got a heavy revolver, pistol, or a hunting rifle. You can pick anything you like, but I think a heavy revolver is going to be great for this character. So we're going to go ahead and write that down. Heavy revolver. And that's got like a bulk of 1, basically. Any pistol is going to be 1. And since we're on that, I'm just going to go over here to the ranged weapon and write it down real quick. Heavy revolver for later use. And then for melee weapons, I'm going to at least have my good old left hand, right hand fist. So we're going to put unarmed strike. Unarmed strike is any kind of like kick, punch, headbutt, whatever you want to do. Martial arts sweep of the legs. Whatever you're good at, that's an unarmed strike. And we're going to fill that out a little bit later, but I just want to note it here since we're looking at equipment. Of course, that's not a piece of equipment. That's your body, so you don't have to write that down. All right, great. So we got that figured out. We're not going to do any detailed shopping on this character building exercise, but we'll fill in those weapons. What else have we got? We've got the sleuth level up chart. We are level 1, so we got some talents here. Deduction, Sixth Sense, and Weak Spot. And then for Weak Spot, we've got a value 1d6. So that's some bonus damage we're going to be doing. So I'm just going to come down here and grab these talents off my handy dandy sidekick entry. And then once again, I'm going to scroll down to page 2 on the character sheet, and we are going to paste them in. Now you're going to see that the font size automatically rejiggers itself because we've got some more stuff here than it can quite fit at the original size. So I'm going to take Weak Spot and I'm going to move it over into the second column there, just so that all this text is nice and big and readable. The formatting doesn't generally come over, so what we want to do is just tune this up just a little bit, and we're just going to put some markers in here for the bullet marks, and maybe a little bit more spacing so it's nice and easy to read. Sixth Sense, let's look at these because we want to know what our character does. So deduction, when you fail an intelligence ability check, you can re-roll that check. This can only be done once per ability check. So the core re-roll mechanic only lets you do it once anyway per roll. Sixth Sense, you gain the following benefits. You can use your wisdom instead of dexterity for attack and damage roll. Any attack and damage roll you make with weapons that don't have the heavy property. So that's something important to remember. We get to use wisdom instead of dexterity, which is usually for ranged weapons or finesse melee weapons. Now we can use wisdom instead of dexterity when we roll for initiative. That's another thing that we can fill out. And we can take the search action as a bonus action. It's not really going to be represented on our character sheet other than these talents. But that's useful if you want to spot a hidden enemy or find an escape route and then still also do something else during your turn. Finally, we've got Weak Spot as a bonus action. You can spend 1 focus to gain advantage on your next attack roll against one opponent you can see. If that attack hits, you deal an additional 1d6 damage. And that damage goes up as you go in levels. So that's kind of why that is important. All right, so that's all of our character talents that we get from class. We are very close to being done with this character. We don't need to worry about inspiration. That's something that happens during the game. Death saving throws, same thing. That's for use in play. Now we have initiative. Normally this is your dexterity bonus, but this character, because of Sixth Sense, we get to use wisdom, so that's going to be +3. Make sure I'm in the field when I type it. Speed is 30 for pretty much any human character in Everyday Heroes. I suppose if you have some issue going on, it might be a little bit slower, but it's generally going to be 30. In other versions of the game, you might be a little slower or faster depending on your origin. If you're playing Everyday Arcana and you're some kind of very quick creature or some kind of very slow little goblin or something. Anyway, normally it's just 30, so that's easy to figure out. And then we've got our hit points, we got our defense, we got all that stuff filled out. And now all we really need to do is finish up these weapons, and we kind of have a complete character. So I'm going to go off of memory here since I designed the game. I kind of know what these things are, but they're very easy to look up inside of Sidekick if you want to. But the index isn't going to have each individual weapon, so it's a little faster if I just do it this way. So the attack bonus normally for an unarmed strike is either strength or dexterity. It's a finessable melee weapon, which means you can use dexterity, and since you can use dexterity, we can substitute wisdom, so we get a +3. We are proficient in unarmed strike because we have basic weapon proficiencies, so that adds another +2, so the total is +5, which is pretty good. Damage is 1d4 for unarmed, plus 3 because we get to use wisdom for our ability score. Except it's not 14d, it's 1d4, so let's fix that. Whoop. There we go. Damage type for unarmed strike is bludgeoning. Penetration value is 1. That's something a little unique to everyday heroes that you won't find in regular 5e. It's for shooting through walls, or shooting through doors, or shooting through a lot of things, but also has to play if you have some body armor on and you get hit by something. If you're taking a high caliber rifle and you're wearing a pie plate, it's not going to help you. The penetration value is going to be way more than the armor value of your armor. So that's what that's for. 1 is pretty low. Pretty much anything can stop a fisticuff if it needs to. For the properties on a unarmed strike are light, and this would let me make offhand attack if I want to during my combat round, and finesse. Not or finesse, but and finesse, which is what lets us use dex, and in this case, lets us use wisdom instead. All right, so that's our unarmed strike. Let's do the heavy revolver. The attack bonus is also going to be +5. Ranged weapons are normally dex, and we get to substitute wisdom for dex. We get our proficiency bonus because revolvers are basic weapons, so that's +5. Damage is 1d10, which is pretty good, plus another 3. And of course, if we use our weak spot ability, they'll be rolling another d6, so pretty good damage for first level. That's going to be ballistic damage, and the penetration value on a heavy revolver is 3. 2 for light guns, 3 for medium guns, 4 for heavy guns, 5 for anti-tank weapons and stuff like that. Next up we have ranged, since this is a ranged weapon. And you'll notice the first thing doesn't have range because that's for melee weapons. Why did we not make them all potentially ranged weapons? Well, because it fits better on the character sheet if we have 1 melee and 2 range. So it goes. Of course, you can use these ranged ones for melee weapons, just don't put in a range. But the range for pistols is generally 100 feet and 200 feet for long range. Bullets go further than that in reality, but this is for fighting and combat, and pistols aren't super accurate when everybody's running around, so that's the accuracy. Rounds for this, we're going to say this is a 6-round revolver. I believe that's the stat on the standard heavy pistol. There happen to be a lot of guns with all kinds of different number of rounds in their revolvering chamber, but 5 and 6 are pretty standard. Reload, it takes an action to reload a revolver normally, and the only property that revolvers usually have is loud, because they are very loud. And that's our ranged weapon. And we are pretty much done with this character. I've decided they're not going to be wearing body armor normally on their security detail, because again, this is not like a bodyguard warrior type private security guy. This is more sort of making sure the employees aren't embezzling, or making sure people aren't spying on the company, that kind of private security. All right, so, and that's pretty much our whole character. We do have an image thing. You can click here to add an image to your character if you want to. You can't see my selection screen, thanks to OBS, but I'll tell you, I'm just picking a portrait of myself, which you'll see in a second, and boom, there it is. Get your portraits wherever you like to. Page 2 is all done. We got everything on here. Now, there are 2 more pages for our full suite of character sheets. We don't need it today, but I'm going to show you what they are really briefly. Page 3 has got a vehicle profile on it, so you can fill out details for a vehicle that you've got. Vroom, vroom. We've got a place that you can have, which could be an apartment, a hideout, an armory, whatever your character happens to have that's a cool location that might be useful during play. And just a field for notes. You can put anything you like in here. If you run out of room on page 2 for your talents, you can put some over here. Smart heroes often have a lot of stuff. They got plans and things they got to record, so a little extra space is always nice. Page 4 has got companions, so there are classes that have companions. You won't find any of those here in the free version of the rules because they're a little bit complex, and it requires us to put all the companions in there. But you can find that in the full core rules for everyday heroes and in some of the expansion worlds as well. Those are pretty cool. There's a special set of rules to keep them balanced and to kind of let your character be in 2 places at once instead of really letting you have 2 characters exactly, at least in combat. Out of combat, of course, they're 2 separate individuals. We've also got contacts here, which is a rule from the Vault and from Universal Soldier. And these are basically like useful people you know that have special skills. So let's say I need to crack into a safe, but I'm not all that high in my security. I can call a safe cracker who's one of my contacts, and he'll come take care of the safe for us, right? So these are pretty cool, useful things. Yeah, anyway, handy. And we've got them on the character sheet. We've got room for 2 of them. And finally, we've got notes again, so you can put in more stuff. And the companions also got a nice big note box, because companions have different attacks and abilities and stuff. It's pretty hard to quantify sometimes, so we just left a big box to type all that stuff into. So there you go. That's the full set of character sheets that you can get on the Hero Sheet package. They come in all kinds of varieties. Let me show you real quick here. When you buy the package, you're going to get 2-page form fillables, and that's the first 2 forms that we did. You're going to get 4-page forms for each of the archetypes that have all 4 pages. You're going to get 4-page print-only versions, and these, instead of being form fillable, they have got, in a space like where it has the talents and feats here, we've got ruled lines, so you can nice and neatly write in all your talents and stuff. Not for me. I like to type into the computer. It's a lot faster. But some people like that, so that's what we got. We've also got individual form character sheets. So these are each individual page separated, so that you can make, if you have a PDF joiner, you can make a custom character sheet. Let's say you're a smart hero, but you multi-class into wise hero. So you can have page 2 for both character classes, so that for smart hero, you've got your plans and stuff here. And for wise hero, you got your focus points. It's very nice. You can mix and match. You can have 2 page 3s if you've got 2 vehicles, all that kind of stuff, right? So you can create your own character sheet using those. And then we have the same thing, but for print versions, so you can just print out the sheets you need, staple them together, and you are good to go. So that is the full character package. So once again, it's about $5. Why are we charging for character sheets? It helps support Sig Trent games, so that money is going to go into buying art for our next project, which is going to be called Shotgun Fantasy, which is going to kind of bridge the gap between D&D and Everyday Heroes, and let you play kind of like Ash in Evil Dead, go back in time, or an Army of Darkness, I should say, go back in time, impress everybody with your boomstick, or take characters from a fantasy world, which I'll have some classes for the core fantasy characters, and you can bring them into the modern world and have adventures, that kind of thing. So that's what Shotgun Fantasy is going to be about. And every time you purchase one of our hero sheets, that's going to be another few bucks to pay for artists for that project. So just going to go right into making new, cool stuff. So that's why we're charging. It's a way to raise money. Plus, there's a lot of work went into making these character sheets. Also, they're a living product. So as we have new needs for stuff for character sheets, we're going to add them into the character sheets and build it out, maybe add more pages. I've already got some requests in that we're thinking about doing. So if you buy a package, whenever we get a new package, you'll get an update and you'll get the new stuff, which is cool. And if we find bugs, which we have found, then you'll get those fixes as well. So that's our commitment to you. And I think that's all for today. Stay tuned for more character building videos and also some tutorial videos that we're going to be putting together. Good gaming out there. Catch you later. Bye-bye.